that's honestly kind of a good spot to transition to what I wanted to get into next, which was the wide receiver room, because I think outside of Garrett Wilson, it's kind of up for debate how things fall after that. Mike Williams starts on the pup list after the torn ACL early last year in week 3. Uh, on a similar schedule, out of Robert Sala's mouth was saying in one of his press conferences during minicamp that he should be on a similar run that Brees Hall was last year, which they started him on the pup list and then ramped him up in August to be ready to go for the start of the season. I would expect similar things from Mike Williams, but then after that, it's who's in the slot. Is it Malachi Corley or Xavier Gipson? They leaned a lot on Xavier Gipson in OTAs and mini camps. And like, where does Lazard fall in here? There's some questions outside of Garrett, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's a few question marks. Obviously, Alan Lazard and what his future with this team is going to look like is a big question mark. And how much playing time is Malachi Corley going to get as a rookie? I'm really excited for that. He's a player who definitely caught my eye during the pre-draft process. Definitely caught the eye of my co-host on Fireside Giants, Alex. That was one of his favorite players, maybe even his favorite player in the draft process. And of course, he went to the New York Jets, which really pained Alex. And that was fun to see that play out on Fireside Giants. But I have a lot of excitement for Malachi Corley. And I do think that Mike Williams being out of the lineup and on the pup list to start training camp should give a few practice snaps with the ones to players like Corley and Gipson and give them an opportunity to gain that chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, gain that trust from Aaron Rodgers and the coaching staff, and hopefully carve out a role for the upcoming season. I think that's going to be a big opportunity for a few of those guys playing on the back end of that lineup and in the roster. So really excited to watch Malachi Corley. It's only training camp, so how much of him are you going to see? A lot of what he does is bang, bang physicality after the catch, breaking tackles. You can't see a lot of that during training camp, but that's kind of the point here is you know what he can do with the ball in his hands with the pads on. Let's see him run these routes without the pads on. What's his timing like with Aaron Rodgers? Are his routes improved? Because he wasn't the best route runner during his collegiate career. You could see these things and see if he's made progress there. And then you'll add that to the fact that he is so physical after the catch when he puts the pads on. And you might start to see him form into a really solid wide receiver at the NFL level. So I actually think Malachi Corley is the player to really keep an eye on in this Jets offense and see what his route running and timing is looking like when the pads aren't on.
Yeah, I'm with you on that because as you mentioned, he's a very physical receiver, and he wins yards after the catch and is not afraid to run guys over. It's going to be really curious to see how it translates in training camp. But something else that you brought up that I think is important to note and to hit on here is the relationship with Aaron Rodgers. When he was drafted, he had the quote saying like, "Oh, I want to stay in Aaron Rodgers' guest house," but in all seriousness, it is important for these rookie wide receivers and these young receivers to get the rapport with the quarterback, because if Rodgers doesn't trust him, he's not getting the football. And it's in his best interest and everyone's best interest for there to be a good relationship, quarterback and wide receivers. So seeing how that works early on in training camp and, wherever he ends up on the depth chart, I think is going to be important too.
Totally. I think that where he starts on the depth chart, though, he can definitely move his way up. I think Malachi Corley is such a dynamic player. So, like I said, I think it's going to be fun to watch him without the pads on, see what his route running and timing is looking like. And then once the pads do come on, he can make some names for himself. He can make some plays, make a name for himself in the preseason, be a standout player. And there you go. Now he's earned a bunch of playing time for the regular season. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And I also think it's going to be fun when we get the Jets and Giants joint practices during training camp. I'm excited to see Malachi Corley. I think that's going to be really intriguing how he matches up with maybe Deonte Banks or some of these other guys. It's kind of like practice reps that we wanted to see because we wanted him on the Giants, but at least we'll get a few of those practice reps with him in a Jets uniform instead.